Welcome viewers to History Facts. In Focal, China, and a group of archaeologists are investigating an organization of underground burial places. Then the specialists find something charming, an old waterlogged coffin. Prizing the item open, the gathering find both a human skeleton and a fixed wooden box held inside. However, that isn't all. Inside that crate is a kind of flawlessly created instrument that nobody has seen for close to 2,400 years. Furthermore, the weapon was once in the ownership of one of the country's significant authentic figures, as the archaeologists will at last find out. In the event that archaeologists in China found an impeccably safeguarded 2,400-year-old weapon. But before we get started, if you're enjoying this video, show us some love by subscribing. It's the best way to support us and never miss out. Let's get started. The blade found in the Chinese burial chamber in 1965, in the meantime, has ended up being an extraordinary social fortune. The supposed kind of Gaussian isn't only excellent for its exceptional workmanship, yet in addition for its unprecedented actual properties. What's more, the weapon's on close to thing in current times has permitted students of history to investigate an old world. All the more explicitly, the blade was uncovered in the territory of Hubei. That name means north of the lake, a reference to the sweeping, overwhelming lake in Hunan region during Neolithic times. The Tent Cove region was occupied by people, and being one of the origin of Chinese civilization is thought of. Given its rich history, then normally Hubei area has a fascinating archaeological record, and Cove is geologically vital for at its heart. The territory hosts of rambling, ultra-ripe alluvial plain called Jianghan. The Yangtze stream likewise goes through Narrows with one of its bigger feeders, the Han going along with it at the Jianghan plain. Likewise, and because of its numerous hydroelectric dams, the land has countless falsely made supplies. As a matter of fact, the district is presently home to the biggest dam on the planet with regards to electrical result, the Three Gorge on the Yangtze. The kind of Gaussian, in the meantime, was found during an overview of the Jianghan Stream Supply's second water passage, which is situated in the city of Jinzhou. The metropolitan place is a 2,000-year-old center point of culture and history that was once the celebrated capital of the province of Chu, a realm that went on for a considerable length of time and saw a progression of 20 rulers. Presently, while researching a segment of water passage in Clanking region, the archaeologists found a progression of 50 burial chambers that were all clearly built during the Chu time, in October 1965. Then, at that point, they begin digging at the site, and to a triumph, you see. Over the 3 months that followed, the group would proceed to recuperate in excess of 2,000 relics, and the coffin containing the kind of Gaussian was found in a burial chamber arranged around 4 miles from the vestigious city of Ying. The blade it unfolded was fashioned during the purported spring and harvest time period in China's Steve experiences, an age that endured from 771 BCE to 476 BCE. The name given to the weapon, in the meantime, comes from a bunch of records composed during this time that depicted the undertakings of the territory of Ulu known as the spring and fall well-evolved creatures. These records contain records of significant occasions in the district, like fights, relationships, passings and customs, and the creatures, which are generally remembered to have been gathered by the urgent Chinese savant Confucius, stay a critical verifiable source. The spring and fall period started in 771 BCE, with the annihilation of Bring Forth, the capital of Western Zhou. Crushed by the Quan Ram, the Zhou ruler disappeared toward the east and established the Eastern Zhou administration in the capital city of Lucroy. However, his control over the area was a long way from outright. To keep his domain intact, other than the Zhou ruler had family members and steadfast commanders oversaw bundles of it as their own fiefdoms. These regions then, at that point, continuously advanced into discrete states, with the dozen most impressive states becoming known as the 12. Then fighting in Hubei prompted the continuous foundation of various little states, changing the guide of the district. Normally, the period was set apart by continuous mechanical turns of events, especially in the creation of deadly implements. Indeed, fine blades were planned and manufactured during this period, within in any event, requiring various years to finish. Furthermore, the kind of Gaussian is one such weapon itself, a result of huge expertise and work. Tightening to a sharp tip, its edge is somewhat under 2 crawls in width at its base, while the grip or handle of the sword has what it takes at 3.3 creeps long. The sword is extravagant in appearance with the outer layer of the edge on the 2 sides scratched with jewel designs. Be that as it may, what makes this kind of gaudy and genuinely unique is its noteworthy condition of conservation. Indeed, regardless of having spent over 2,000 years in a water-doused burial place, the curio was found totally clean that stayed destructive sharp for sure, as specialists found it very fit for cutting through a heap of 20 pieces of paper. First of all, its impermeable sheath safeguarded it from the components, and the metallurgical structure of the weapon likewise had an impact in its lifespan. Concerning the proprietor of the sword, all things considered, he is named in 2 segments of engraved script on the 2 sides of the edge. That composing is a kind of seal script known as bird worm after the fluffy strokes that characterize its characters. Seal script got from supposed prophet bone content and was in famous use all through the spring and pre-winter period. The engravings on the blade uncovered then that it once had a place with a neighborhood ruler. On one side of the edge, there are the words ruler of you. On the other, it peruses made this blade for his own utilization. Sadly, however, the content doesn't indicate precisely which specific Lord of you was answerable for rejuvenating the weapon. During that period, in any case, 9 unique rulers controlled over the state. Thus, to decide the blade zona, a gathering of students of history began to share their speculations in a progression of composed letters. It is accepted that the weapon once had a place with Gaudi and a champion lord popular for his coarseness and assurance in troublesome times. Gaudi and partook in the last extraordinary conflict of the age, and is figured by some to have been one of the 5 fence people. The 5 head people were basically a progression of local warlords, who had the ability to prepare the extensive military assets of this tremendous domain. However, before he could turn into a hegemon, Gaudi first needed to substantiate himself commendable, acquiring the EU crown from his dad, Yun Chang Goji, and became lord in 496 BC, whereupon he promptly confronted an existential test. Around then, ruler Halu of Wuhan, adjoining state and long-running adversary of EU, saw weakness in the EU court and assembled his armed forces for an assault. What's more, when the ruler is in this way escaped to her nation of origin, it made sufficient ill will begin a conflict. Prior to passing on, however, he educated his child organisms to get payback for his loss, in this manner committing people in the future to the pattern of contention. Once more, then 3 years after the fact, Wuhan Yu went head-to-head. Taking everything into account, he needed to encounter the symbolic shock of going about whatever amount of methodical Gaussian's trouble happened for a seriously prolonged stretch of time before parasites allowed him to get back with his majestic power restored. Gaudi and thusly gathered a gathering of arranged guides and delegates to help with building up his domain. In actuality, there is an old Chinese articulation but said to deficiently suggest Gaussian's canine had resoluteness, playing on sticks, and tasting objective. Additionally, ultimately, Gaussian's perseverance paid off. According to an undeniable story, formed by the Han custom in 94 BCE and known as the Shai Ji, 10 years of focused statecraft had transformed you into a regional awe-inspiring phenomenon. The text says the state is rich and the boss is a lot of redressed, proceeding striking at the world capital, but Goji and had believed that parasites will coordinate his militaries northward for an alternate standoff with the state of Qi. Then in 473 BC, Gaudi and again laid assault to the capital, and this time the city persisted for a seriously lengthy time span preceding falling. Then, in the wake of assuming control over Wu Deyi and purged the Wu congruity by executing its scientists, definitely, in what was perhaps a quick at this point, undoubtedly merciless move, the triumphant Master Gaudi and didn't additional his enemies. Gaudi and thus governed over the domain of Yu for quite a while until his passing in the year 465 BC. Then something like 10 years sometime later, the greater area entered one more time of history known as the Battling States period. In 334 BC, 6 ages after the standard of Gaudi, and ruler Wu Jiang of Yu was getting ready to go after Qi. Wu Jiang was squashed, and the domain of EU was thusly vanquished by to the Battling States time period truly happened until 221 BCD, when the territory of Qin vanquished all of the 6 of its huge adversaries, and China was bound together under family Shi Huang, the central leader of Qin. And remembering that the Qin line was brief, getting through just 15 years, it had its own continuing on through legacy. In that period, one more sort of Chinese imperialism was introduced that ultimately happened until 1912. Today, then, the sort of Gaussian is on display in Hu by normal verifiable focus. Meanwhile, in 1983, archaeologists found an extraordinary companion part of the sort of Gaussian, while making a plunge, crashing a spear having a spot with ruler living beings of Wu. Moreover, correspondingly likewise with the blade, the spear of organic entities is engraved with bird-worm script, having a spot with ruler parasites of woe. The thing communicates. Made for his own usage, the spear hardly any sounds rich, social and evident legacy could make it a certifiable fortune for those expecting to find pieces of the past. Likewise, the important relics tracked down there, for instance, this sort of Gaussian restore a distant time stacked up with rulers and champions that as of late were only the space of history books. Thanks for watching. If you don't want to miss out on any of our upcoming videos, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. It's the best way to stay in the loop.